This is Curtis coming at you from Ace Bread Studios once again, covering the 2021 NFL season. Our Dolphins, they turned it around. They're coming off a big win. Now they've got a much tougher opponent and a much bigger win needed ahead of them against the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to dig into that in a two-part podcast. This is going to be the prep work for the film study that's coming in the next one. Trying to find different ways to convey the information. I feel like every week there's just so much information I leave on the floor that I can't really cover. And so I'm going to try a different way this time. This time I'm going to do the prep work here of what I'm seeing, stats, information, and then use that as a template over the next one for the film study. So I want to open up with a little bit of a mea culpa. I misspoke last time. I didn't even realize it. Somebody had said, Waddle was overpaid. That's what I said. But what I really meant was that the purchase price and draft picks to get him was a little too much. I didn't mean about his salary or something like that. So I just want to get that out of the way. For me, when I watch the tape the way I do, and for what I believe as a football evaluator, it all starts at the line of scrimmage. And our offensive line's so bad that for me, Slater and a first-round draft pick or Micah Parsons and a first-round draft pick has greater value in my mind at this point. It could change it could change down the road. Waddle could be a Hall of Fame, and these other two guys could be nobodies. But what I'm seeing from our lack of pass rush without scheme, and more importantly, this offensive line, the 45th best offensive line in football, I do feel that Waddle is, with the price tag to acquire his talents was a little high. Kid's great. Player, I love him. There's nothing not to love. But in my mind, it's his opinion. It's my evaluation. That's what I meant, not the kid's salary. It means absolutely nothing to me. So I'm moving on for that. Also, Lewis Jones had said in a prior podcast that injuries and the C word, that doesn't mean anything. You get the win, you get the win. And he's 100% right. Lewis, you're 100% right. But I said last time, and I'm going to say it again, this is what this two podcasts are going to be about, is the evaluation process. When you're trying to determine what was the value of the win that you had, what was the value of the performance of those players, and how that projects going forward, and most importantly, to the next game coming up. And that's what I'm going to focus on. And that's injuries and the C word. They play a big part in the evaluation and the projection, but nothing in the wins and losses. So the Saints were decimated by that, where the Titans don't appear to be. Things can change. That's what makes this Titan game very difficult. This Saints game could have been extremely difficult and a great win for us in the sense of beating a quality team. It was a great win for us because we needed the win, and I really didn't care how we got it. But this week is going to be much tougher. And with Derrick Henry out, people are thinking, well, it's the Titans and Ryan Tannehill. I've been watching some tape on them, catching up to them. And I think you might want to rethink those thoughts when you watch the film and after this little study. So I'm going to do some reviews on the matchups between the Titans and San Fran. That was the last week's game for them. And a review on our game against the Saints to kind of create the framework of these matchups and what's going to be the most critical aspect for this game coming up. To me, when I begin to evaluate a game, the very first thing I do is look at the two opposing offensive lines. And I determine where they're at, because each one is the foundation of each team. And as I always say, the offensive line makes the NFL world go around. There's no more critical unit, no more far-reaching effect than the offensive line. It sets the table for the entire offense, all the skills, quarterbacks, And it creates time of possession, which rests the defense, and a rested defense makes plays, and a tired defense gives plays up. So the offensive line, it's not like, oh, if they're 5 spots better. No, but if there's a stark difference, that immediately puts red flags up on me, for those two teams going into it. And that's what we're going to see this week. Our offensive line, I call them the 45th best offensive line in football for a reason. And they went against a depleted Saints unit, and we all saw how bad they are. Now, this gives credit to the running backs who are able to make stuff happen despite poor blocking. This gives credit to Tua for him to survive and thrive under a terrible, terrible framework. It is so dangerous to be Tua. It is so hard to get stuff done. And even the OCs who have to create this short, quick game, because if not, Tua will be knocked out and they would get nothing done. And it's all based around this offensive line. But the run game is critical for both teams. It's going to play a major part. We're in the fun ball era. The rules have been adjusted and changed and throwing the football. But if you notice of the last couple of years, that fun ball mentality has been diminishing and the effect has been diminishing because defensive coordinators kind of started catching up to it. And the talent has migrated more and more to the defense to compensate for these new rules. This is the way it happens. Football operates in cycles. It's not to say that the passing game is dead or anything like that, but it has been diminished. And the running game, if you notice, more and more teams are using the running game to be key elements to their success, and the running back is starting to find some prominence again. Not like it was back in the day, but the worm's turning a bit. So the Titans have the 25th best pass offense, which is not good. Ours is the 15th. We have a substantial edge on them in the passing game. But we have the 30th best rushing attack, and they have the 4th. And that is a vast ocean of difference. Now, this doesn't mean we're going to lose and they're going to win. A lot of things can happen between there and here. But the matchups, the evaluations, what kind of quality challenge this all comes into play. Now, defense, both defenses are really good. Both defensive coordinators are really good. Both head coaches, in my opinion, are really good. I love Brian Vrabel. I can't remember his first name. Vrabel. I love the guy. He is stone. He's got guts. He's got patience to be patient and guts to go for it when he has to. And he knows his team. And sometimes when you saw him against the Bills, he was undermanned at the cornerback position, but he found ways by calling certain coverages to compensate. He's great on the fly. He's great in prep. He's great in halftime adjustment. He's a phenomenal coach. And to me, Brian Flores and Vrabel are two of the best defensive coordinators in the game, defensive coaches and head coaches. I believe Vrabel's got a little bit of edge on him because he's got more experience than Flores. But Flores is a really good coach in my mind. I think he's going to be his equal and rise to that standard soon. But when you go against somebody, it's not just about your strength versus their weakness. It's their strength versus your weakness. And who can kind of get the game into that situation. And the run game is a little bit easier to base your team off than the passing game. Once you begin passing the football, there's a few extra variables that make it more difficult. You know, obviously you got to throw the football, the guy's got to catch the football, you got to pass protect, you got to read coverages. Running the football is a much easier prospect. It's more physical. It's simple. That's why running backs can come into the NFL. Within their first season, they can be successful. It's a very instinctual position. And there's a physicality to it where the passing game is a little bit more finesse and it's a little bit more difficult that way and more affected by inclement weather than the run game. So the Dolphins are coming off a Monday night game. They have a little less prep work time. Titans will have a little bit more rested. And that's why a fresher team with a better running game is a very good edge, and it makes this a dangerous game for Miami. And not to mention, recently I was seeing the C word has Brandon Jones on the list, Butler and Jenkins, all three of them play a major part in stopping the run. Jenkins doesn't see that much action, but in a game like this, I'd expect him to actually be activated beyond the 53. And the fact that he might not be there, I mean, it could change, but these three guys is another thing that's pushing the Titans' run game advantage to the Titans' run game. Now, without Henry, they have a diminished run game, but not as much as you think. So let's look at our run game because it's played a major part in our defense and the turnaround of our team. I said all season we need to run the football. I did a very long study on how time of possession and rushing attempts is the most popular way to get time of possession, and time of possession is critical for a defense, for the top defenses. And you can see over the last couple of weeks, we've had time of possession. Our defenses look stellar. But that's going to be key in this game is time of possession. It's going to be a little more difficult. Now, we ran the football 29 times for 85 yards against the Saints. They're the 15th ranked rushing defense, but they were missing their entire linebacker group, and they had no offense. So that's a little bit of a misnomer. But we were still only able to get 2.9 yards per carry. And you saw the way this offensive line was victimized by a very good Saints defense that was diminished. Now, the Saints, conversely, they were able to run 17 times for 69 yards for 4.5 yards per carry. We had the ball for 34 minutes. They had it for 26. That 8 minutes is a big deal. It's going to be a lot harder for us to get that kind of time of possession differential if, 2.9 yards might be 2.3 or 2.1 yards per carry. It's going to make it a lot harder on guys to be patient and to keep running the football and to keep a balanced offense, which is critical for this team. Because if our offensive linemen have to sit and pass protect all day, it's not going to be pretty. So this doesn't mean we can't or won't. It's just increasing the difficulty level. Now, the Titans versus the 49ers. The 49ers were the 7th best run defense at 123 yards per game. Titans are the 2nd best rush defense, and they limited the 49ers to only 83 yards on the ground. And a lot of that 83 yards came off the edge runs. But considering that Jesse Davis and Eichenberg are our tackles, and the tackle San Fran has is Trent Williams, one of the best of all time, and Tom Compton, who's playing out of his mind, top 5 tackle, this is a totally different set of circumstances. It'll be very difficult for us to hit the edges. It's going to have to be some really wacky plays, some plays to try to some screens, maybe jet sweeps, something to get to that edge, because that's where the Titans have a little bit of weakness, and it could be exacerbated if David Long's hammy keeps him out of this game. 50-50 is questionable. But it's going to be very tough for us to run. Now, the Titans went against the 49ers. Run defense is the 11th best in the league, and they generated 90 yards and had a pretty quality running attack. They have a very good offensive line, maybe top 12. They've got Luan, Keesenberry, both of them are top 20 players. Luan is maybe top 5. Ben Jones is top 10 center. And then they got a bunch of other guys that are pretty solid, but they're all good run blockers. Now, if we can stop the run and put Tannehill into pass protection, their pass protection isn't as good, and it's going to be good for us. But that's why, again, it's going to be key for us to stop the run. It's going to be key for us to run the football to keep our defense fresh. So a slightly more tired defense with the less smaller week, the shorter week, is going to be fresh enough to stop that run game. But when you think about, you got Alec Mack, who's having a resurgence in his career. He's like a top 12 center. He's not who he used to be, but he's still really good. Laken Tomlinson, who's a top 10 just about left guard, and Trent Williams, who's like a Hall of Famer. That's their left side. And you compare it to Eichenberg, Jackson, and Dieter, it can get scary. We're going to have to be highly creative, and it's going to be a very dangerous game for Tua. We have to run the football. But if you saw in that Saints game how Jackson was victimized, how Dieter was victimized, what do you think is going to happen with Jeffrey Simmons? Jeffrey Simmons was getting doubles from Tomlinson and Trent Williams and breaking them at times. They were struggling in doubles with these two, all world, all history left tackle and a high-end left guard. What do you think Eichenberg and Jackson are going to do, or Jackson and Dieter against Simmons? It's going to be highly difficult and highly dangerous. This is going to be the focus of the entire game. Jeffrey Simmons versus our defensive line. If somehow we can figure out a way to handle him, this is going to go a long, long way. But you got Bud Dupree, not a great pass rusher, but he's able to stop the run, physical. Then you got Harold Landry, not a great pass. He can be at times, but he's better run defender. And so they're going to probably get us in that like third and long, second and long, and it's going to be very hairy for us. It's going to be very critical for us to be patient as offensive coordinators, as an offense, and to it especially. Because the Titans and Vrabel, they are masters of the patience game. You watch them. I've watched many of their games, and you could see the way they went against the Bills, and they were down at corners, and Vrabel was able to scheme up stuff to cover over his weakness and to play that patience game, but then yet be aggressive enough at the right time. This is going to be a very difficult game. If we can win this game, in my mind, I think we have a great shot to beat the Patriots and do a lot of stuff. I think if we go to the playoffs, if we can beat the Titans in this kind of game, despite the 45th best offensive line in football, then I think almost anything is possible. This is going to be such an epic win if we can pull it out. It's going to be a very dangerous game. Now, they got Jenkins, they got Fulton and Screen at corner. They're decent. They're sound. And there's Waddle is going to play a big part. He can attack them, run after the catch. I saw in the 49ers game, had a big potency against this Titans defense, who's a little bit bigger and maybe not as athletic. So that's going to be a big edge for us to have to take advantage of. But they got Bird and Hooker at safeties, and that might be the top, you could probably trade them up as top 3 safety combo. So we're not going to get those deep plays. It's all going to be work in the middle, and Rack after the catch is going to be critical, and Waddle is going to be a guy who could really break this game open. But it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult, but if he can do it, that's going to be the kryptonite to this defense. So I'm setting up the framework here of what I'm going to do in a film study. I'm going to go and show each offensive lineman how they handled the situation, how the offensive coordinators kind of put them into situations, and how that affected the runners and Tua. Because this triangle is going to be the key. And it's going to be way more difficult this week than it was against the Saints. This is not saying, again, we can't do it. We can. But you better hold on to your hats. And like I said, Don Shula really mattered to me. It was like the father I never had. He was like the father I never had. I want to see the season be worthy of the dedication to him, of his passing. I'm so desperate to see this win. I'm so desperate to get the Patriots defeat both these. I don't care what happens after that. I want Don Shula's dedication to be worthy of him. But I'm very, very nervous. We can do this. Really, almost anything is possible. I really believe that. But it's going to be highly difficult, folks. So I want to get your comments so I can process your thoughts and what I'm seeing and what I'm projecting. And when I go back over the film and do the film study, I'll have that for you tomorrow or the next day. And this will be, like I said, the framework. So I'm just going to kind of get into that. I'll point back to this film for people who maybe not have watched this. But I'm going to go right into the film. It's going to be a pretty long film study, maybe like 15 minutes or 18 minutes. I'm going to try to make it a real long one. Anyway, I just want to give one last thing. All my blood family is passed and moved on to the other world. And my wife's family is really the only family I have. And Aunt Isabel is one of my favorites. I love her deeply. She gave me this. I think she's maybe mocking me, saying I'm 50 años, saying I'm an old man. but she's a lovely person. She's just a great family member. I just want to tell her I love her. And Isabel, I love you. Remember, you're older than me. Anyway, I just want to give a shout out to her. I love her to death. That's why I swapped out my beloved Finns for this new one today. Anyway, so comments, subscribes, and likes keep us in business and help us to Google overlords, and I like that. So please subscribe and like. The tech guys that I work with here, you know, they're saying we're almost at 5K, and I should say something about it. It's a big deal. It seems like a big deal. It's a lot of numbers, but I see a lot of people, I don't know. But anyway, it's amazing that people are actually paying attention to this thing, so I'm very grateful, but keep subscribing so the tech guys can be happy. And I got the big tape coming for you. Big game, guys. Give all emoji you got. We're going to need it. This is one heck of a game. I'm going to get into Tannehill next time, because I think I'm going to a little preface for that, because Tannehill deserves a little bit of respect. Michael Smith had brought up about Brown, and somebody else was talking. Sean Davis wanted to know about Tannehill. I'm going to cover that next time in a little quickie before I go into the film study. But this is a big game, guys. We really need this one. It's going to all come down to our offensive line. That's what I've been saying all season, and that's where we're at. Anyway, it's Curtis saying thanks for staying to the end. Catch you next time. Be well. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.